As Washington Watch viewers and listeners know, the U.S. Senate voted this week to codify into federal law the 2015 Supreme Court decision that redefines the definition of marriage. And in significant ways, they did much more than just codify that decision. As we've discussed, despite the claims of some senators, the bill does not protect religious liberty for individuals and institutions with a biblical view of marriage. Now, this sad reality will be especially felt within faith-based adoption and foster care agencies, making them potentially a target for frivolous litigation and possibly ending their ability to help children find homes. Joining me now to discuss this is Herbie Newell. He's the president and executive director of Lifeline Children's Services. Herbie, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for tackling this very important subject and this disheartening bill that's made its way through the Senate.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you. We're thankful for your voice in this. But before we get into your thoughts on the bill, just tell us what Lifeline Children's Services does.
Yeah, sure. We're an adoption, foster care, orphan care ministry based here in the United States, but working in 25 countries around the world. We help place children in the government systems into homes where they can have a mom and a dad and be able to seek what's best for their future. Also, we are placing children who have been lovingly placed by their birth mothers into homes, and then around the world helping equip the global church to really wake up to caring for the 153 million orphans of the world. And so our heartbeat is to connect children, vulnerable families, and vulnerable women to the resources they need to thrive and survive.
And this is exactly what the church should be doing. Now, you've expressed concern about this legislation. Tell us what your concerns are.
Yeah, well, I think whenever we tinker with something as foundational as marriage, it brings about a long-lasting impact, not just on our society, but especially on children. You know, in the United States of America, the whole reason that we legalized marriage was for the protection of children and the flourishing of children. And so it was never meant to codify the wants, the desires, or the relationships of individuals. It was always meant to have a mechanism by which we were protecting children. And so when you rearrange, rewrite, when you tamper with something as traditional as bedrock to the flourishing of a community as marriage, ultimately vulnerable children become that much more vulnerable. And so we're speaking out because this is so important that even though our Congress is trying to rewrite history and rewrite marriage and civilization, that as people, we need to go back and make sure that children, the most vulnerable, are those that are being protected.
I do find it a bit ironic that we are very concerned about the ecosystems of wetlands across the country. And we would say we can't remove a plankton. We can't allow the temperature of the water to change in any way because all of these things are codependent upon each other. Yet when it comes to the ecosystem of the family, we seem to think that all of the individual parts are irrelevant to the health of the whole. And we're happy to remove a mother, happy to remove a father if it meets the emotional needs of the individuals involved. And really the family, as God designed it, is an ecosystem, and everything is mutually dependent upon each other to be healthy. And you've seen this firsthand because your work and your ministry is dealing with the fallout of the decisions that are made by people who have rejected ultimately God's design for human sexuality and the family. And you've expressed that well. Are you primarily concerned with the effect that this legislation will have on the family, or on you as an organization and your ability to kind of carry out your mission in a way that's consistent with your faith?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, we won't compromise our mission and what the Lord has called us to do. And so my concern is the fallout on the family. You know, I think certainly organizations are worried, and there will be a much more litigious society that's built around this. But, you know, we're going to continue to do what the Lord's called us to do, and we're going to continue to work hard to bring hope and healing to vulnerable children and vulnerable families. But our society will continue to decay, and there's been a long war against humanity. And we see that in the abortion debate. a war against procreation and humanity and flourishing of life. But we see this even deadlier, I believe, with the redefinition of marriage, when truly we're trying to redefine what does a child need. And so my worry is that the vulnerable are going to become more vulnerable. We're going to see more broken families. We're going to see more children without the stability and the support that they need. And so I hope that we won't make our talking points about our religious institutions, but we'll go back and make our talking points about what's so detrimental to future generations.
I think that's a really powerful point, and I appreciate you. The first thing that you said there is we're not going to change, and it brings to mind Daniel chapter 3 and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they were just threatened with the fiery furnace. And what they said to King Nebuchadnezzar is, "We have no need to answer you in this matter. Our God can save us from your hand. But even if He doesn't, we are not going to worship your idols." And I just want to commend you for that, because I think that's exactly the kind of attitude that is ultimately going to change this country. That's what God used to change Babylon in that case, and the heart of the king. So I want to affirm you in that. What message do you have to other pastors, ministry leaders who might find themselves in a similar situation?
Yeah, I would tell any ministry leader and pastor, I think in this environment, unfortunately, we've seen a lot that have capitulated and allowed society to change the fabric of the message, the fabric of who we are. But there is great message and great hope in, first, the God of the Bible. He is the one that created marriage, created family. He is the one that made us male and female. And we don't need to compromise on what God has done, but we need to stay true to that. We speak truth, but we do so in love. And so truth without love is hurtful and hateful. Love without truth is no love at all. And so we need to go forward, not conforming to the society, but being the ones that come like a thermostat and change society for the better and ultimately for the glory of God.
Amen to that. Herbie Newell, President and Executive Director of Lifeline Children's Services. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for your courage, your service to the children of our country and to the church broadly. Greatly appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.